I just read all 36 pages of how to succeed in a Mr. Beast production so you don't have to. This is the internal document that was recently leaked that is sent to employees when they are joining Team Mr. Beast. Now, apparently, this is the updated or most recently updated version of this specific manual. So, who knows how many variations of this document there are? But this is the one that was leaked, and with recent allegations that have come out about the toxic work environment that he created for his employees, I'm kind of inclined to believe that some of these allegations might actually be true. And I think after watching this video, you're going to understand why. Hello, 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 and welcome to Alexa's Room, where we are not lawyers, we are not medical professionals, we are not law enforcement, we are just people. People who have opinions about all things going on in the true crime community, including what is going on with Mr. YouTube, aka Mr. Beast. Now, if you missed my last video, we talked all about the Beast games, all the allegations that have come forth from that New York Times article that was recently released a little over a week ago, including having to put 5 days worth of undergarments in Ziploc bags and hand it over to staff, among many, many more. And it gets way worse than that. So if you want to check out that video, I will link it at the very end of this video. But today, I wanted to focus our conversation around this document that was recently leaked from a former Mr. Beast employee. I believe this was first leaked to Dogpack 404. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I will go through the parts that I believe are the most important in terms of just the kind of environment, the kind of boss he is to his employees, and how it might line up with some of the allegations that have been made as we continue to go down the Mr. Beast rabbit hole. Now, I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of stuff in here that goes into content creation. And as a content creator, a new one, but a new content creator who's looking for, always new ways to grow my channel in the quickest and fastest way possible, you can take a lot of the stuff that's in this document and see it almost as a masterclass of content creation. But that is not going to be the focus of our conversation for today's video. So, and you'll see too, he's not the best writer. And like I said at the top of this video, this is only one of the most recent iterations of this alleged document. It has been verified by two former, granted anonymous employees who have come forward confirming that this is a very real document. So let's dive in. Hi. Hi. Okay. Hi, Jimmy. Hi, I'm Jimmy, Mr. Beast. And as the team is growing larger, I no longer get to spend as much time with everyone as I used to. The first dozen employees had unfiltered and unlimited access to me to learn as much as they could about my vision and what I wanted. Sadly, you don't have that luxury. Spoken like a real CEO. Well, why don't they? Why can't they get access to you? Because you're too big? Because you can't make the time to be a leader and speak to your employees, the people who are making you money, who are helping you grow to be as big as you want to be? I mean, it's so backwards to me. So I thought it would be useful to try to brain dump as much as I can into this silly little book to give new people to help bring them up to speed on everything we've learned over the past decade with this channel. So yeah, he's been doing this about 10 years now. We've been through a lot, and chances are most of the problems you face we've dealt with. So I genuinely believe if you attentively read and understand the knowledge clearly, he's not a writer. The knowledge here, you will be much better set up for success. So, if you read this book and pass a quiz, like I wonder what the quiz is because there is no quiz that's attached in this manual. I'd be really curious. If anybody has access to that, please feel free to hit me up at Alexa's Roommate with 1M, gmail.com, or you can DM me at Twitter at Alexasrewm. I'd be curious what that quiz was like. So if you read the book and pass a quiz, I'll give you $1,000. He just loves offering people $1,000. I wonder if he's going to also give them a stack of dollar bills worth of $1,000 because you can't apparently direct deposit or send a check. Apparently, you got to give them $1 bills. Sorry in advance for all the run on sentences and grammar issues. I'm a YouTuber, not an author. Ha ha. Ha ha, Jimmy. I mean, this is like third grade stuff. This is not a rule book. I need to kick this thing off by saying the purpose of this is to not give you a bunch of rules to follow. Okay. On top of that, I want nothing in here to be taken literally. I mean, that's concerning right there. So, okay, so should we be taking it figuratively? Like what you're saying, we shouldn't like because it that literally makes zero sense. But okay, what we do is complex and changes based on the situation. I need you to repeat this in your head 3 times. I will apply everything I read with a grain of salt. That's concerning. This is not an inclusive list of everything. I hope this inspires you with questions and to come to us to learn more. So he's trying to create this false idea of like, no, even though you have no access to me whatsoever because I'm Mr. Big Shot over here, I don't have time to interact with my employee, my underlings, these because you are a plebe and I am the king of shit here. But then he's also saying, "Well, no, you can always come to us if you have questions. It's safe here." So it's creating this false idea that they are approachable, and you'll come to learn that this is not exactly true. You really are thrown to the wolves and have to figure out everything by yourself. Prelude. IDK what this means. This is what prelude means, Jimbo. An action or event serving as an introduction to something more important. That's what that means. I can make a separate book for creative, a separate book for production, a separate book for editors. But I think that'd be dumb. Everything we do here is interconnected, and the more you understand about what others are doing and trying to accomplish, the better setup for success you will be. So, this will be information about all parts of Mr. Beast Productions, and I advise everyone to read it in its entirety. And we did, boy. Oh, we did. A good example of this is James Warren. Now, up until this point, I have no idea who James Warren is. I'm still very much going through the digging process, but I heard that he is one of the people who is essentially like Jimmy's right hand man for all things Mr. Beast. And I've heard that there are some things that some of the allegations that are connected to him. So as we continue going down this rabbit hole, just keep his name in mind because it may come up in a future video. He understands every single part of this company at a deep level and as a result can make decisions faster than anyone else. The stuff you will be reading about, he knows like the back of his hand. I've seen a team of people work on a project for a week just to give up, and James solve it in 30 minutes. So already he's setting the precedence, even though he just said if you get stuck, you can come to us and ask questions, any questions you have to learn more. But then he's saying this group of 5 people, these idiots, they couldn't figure out something in a week's time, but James can figure it out in 30 minutes. So he's already putting this guy, James Warren, on a pedestal. And now you're set with the expectation of, well, crap, okay, these are the expectations. Like, I have to figure out things on my own and fast. I say this not to flex for him, but to show the power that comes when you understand everything in this book deeply. I like how he also calls it a book. Like this is a Google Doc. This is not a book, dude. The more you know, especially because you just said you're not an author. So there you go. The more you know about why we do things and what we are trying to accomplish, the better off you will be. So let's start off with some basic stuff. What is your goal here? Your goal here is to make the best YouTube videos possible. I don't know why YouTube is in all caps, but best YouTube videos possible. He is yelling at you now. That's the number one goal of this production company. It's not to make the best produced videos, not to make the funniest videos, not to make the best looking videos, not the highest quality videos. It's to make the best YouTube videos possible. Well, don't all those things sum up what a best video would be? Like, what does that even mean? Everything we want will come if we strive for that. Sounds obvious, but after 6 months in the weeds, a lot of people tend to forget what we are actually trying to achieve here. No, Jimmy, I think that the fact that you're a completely absentee boss and the fact that you're a crappy leader that people don't feel comfortable approaching to, that's why they get stuck in the weeds after 6 months. So I get after 6 months, that's how long of a period you have before he tells you to kick the can down the road. I don't care how traditional media does things. Pardon the bluntness, but this is not Hollywood, and I do not want to be Hollywood. That's a lie. That's 100% a lie. You're literally putting together a game show. How more Hollywood can you get? You're literally working with one of the biggest companies in the world right now to stream your shitty game show. How is that not you don't get more Hollywood than that. And if that sentence is a turnoff to you, then you're probably at the wrong job. I genuinely mean that. YouTube is the future. And I believe with every fiber of my body, it's going to keep growing year over year. And in 5 years, YouTube will be bigger than anyone will ever have imagined. And I want this channel to be at the top, which is why I say we are not Hollywood. 99% of movies or TV shows would flop on YouTube. On top of that, they'd be wildly unprofitable, have no flexibility and long lead times that can't adapt to trends. So he's admitting to the clickbaitiness right here. That's a totally entirely different conversation about how his content could be rotting our brains, but I digress. We aren't, so clearly his grammar issues carry over here. He doesn't know how to spell aren't. Here to make a small movie once or twice a year. I want to make one a week, lol, which is why you need to be nimble and produce content our way. Not our way, not the way you were taught before. So pretty much unlearn every single thing you've ever learned. We are the only ones who know the way. I beg you to learn why we do what we do at a deeper level before you try to fix anything. But fix what? We've done countless videos and invested hundreds of thousands of hours collectively building how we do things. I know it's not perfect, but we have a reason for how we do most stuff, and it's probably a decent one. Like, what does that even mean? What does that even mean? I know it's not perfect. Like, what, the way that you do it? But we have a reason for how we do most stuff. That's also concerning. Like what? Like covering up the fact that your best friend is in a chat room talking to minors? Allegedly? The fact that you hired a registered PDF file? Allegedly? And making them wear a mask in some of the videos? And it's probably a decent one. Like, what does that even mean? The amount of hours you work is irrelevant. Before you get mad, recall the story about James solving a problem in 30 minutes of a team of 5 of 5 couldn't in a week. So he clearly didn't like revise this before. Like nobody went in like looked this over before he published it and sent it out. But I mean, like the story of I mean, it wasn't a story so much as a line or two about you saying, hey, these 5 people are idiots and they couldn't figure out this one thing. But James goes in, my best bud, and he can fix it in 30 minutes. Be more like James. I mean, like, so not much as a story, but more of a flex, even though you said not to flex him or anything. But in that example, does it really matter how many hours they worked? Obviously, we want grinders that put in the hours and love you guys to death that do. But at the end of the day, you will be judged on results, not hours. We are a results based company. Get shit done and move the goalposts. So I will jump in and say this is pretty much verbatim how a lot of digital marketing companies, agencies, anybody in the marketing world, when you were applying for any job related to that, especially with like ads or copywriting, anything like that, This is always how it is. It's always a fast pace. And are you willing to work on the weekends? Are you willing to, obsess over this? So this isn't language that I'm unfamiliar with. This is something that I've seen constantly come up, and that is just disgustingly gross and toxic for me, because it essentially says that your life needs to be this job. And for some people, yeah, it is, and that's fine if you're obsessed with it. And clearly Jimmy is, and he's looking for other people who are equally as obsessed with it. Fine. But to have that standard for everybody and then to not treat them appropriately or graciously for them doing that, not that everybody wants a pat on the back. That's not what I'm saying. But it comes off as a little toxic. Like, you're going to do all of this for me, but what's the reward in the end? So it's a results based company, but what result equates to what reward? Is there a reward I'm working towards? And they'll dangle these little carrots like, oh, we'll give you $1,000 for this. And in the grand scheme of thing, with all his hundreds of millions of dollars, it's not really a lot. This is not just Mr. Beast. This is a lot of people in the marketing industry, a lot of people in the digital content space. So I wasn't really surprised reading it, but you might have a different interpretation of it and what expectations are. But I only want A players. As I type this, I realize it may not be the wisest to categorize everyone into three buckets, but this is how I believe we should look at everyone a part of the, I guess he meant as part of the production team. You're either an A player, a B player, or a C player. There is only room in this company for A players. Again, I have heard that 1,000 times before. A players are obsessive, learn from mistakes. They're coachable, they're intelligent, they don't make excuses. Believe in YouTube, see the value of the company, and are the best in the goddamn world at their job. B players are new people that need to be trained into A players, and C players are just average employees. They don't suck, but they aren't exceptional. There's that spelling error again. At what they do, they just exist. So, this is my problem with it. It's not so much we only have room for A players in this, because again, like, the marketing space and the content creation space is so competitive, and this just goes along with this fast-paced energy. But it's not even just him. This is a industry-wide thing, and this is why I think more people from the marketing industry need to start talking about it, because it does create a toxic work environment where you feel like you have this just forever duty to always be on it, always be thinking about it, always be obsessed, and not think about anything else, and dedicate your life to growing essentially somebody else's business. Like, how is this any different from working in corporate? It's not. It's not. But they sell you on the stream of, oh, well, you're essentially a freelancer and you're working for yourself and you're a contractor. And I don't know if he hires, this is something I'd be curious about. Are his employees W-2 or are they contractors? Because that, I know he gives like a severance to employees who no longer work for him, but I'm curious if he works with contractors versus W-2 employees, or if there's kind of a mix, because I've seen an abuse from a lot of big corporate companies, some that I've worked for, that will use contractors, treat them like pretty much garbage, and then cut them loose whenever they want without any repercussion, because they're not W-2 employees. And I'm not saying that Jimmy's doing that, but I'm curious if anybody knows if these are W-2 employees or not. Do they get health benefits? Like, these are the questions that I have. Things that would make you motivated to become an A player. Again, like, I've seen this language just so many times, but the thing that I have a problem with is just how dehumanizing this is. And this is a recurring theme with Jimmy, is they just exist. Like, you don't matter. You don't matter if you're a C player. And like, God forbid you are just an employee. God forbid that your life isn't your work. And not every person values their job like that. Some people's passion in life is just being a parent. And what is wrong with that? There is nothing wrong with that. Now, that being said, if you suck at your job, you suck at your job. And I can it like, yeah, you get the can, like, that's the way it is. But and I think generally this generation, I'm talking specifically about Gen Z, because of just the toxic work environment that's been created since essentially the industrial revolution with the 9 to 5, the whole idea that you have to do 8 hours of work every day, 40 hours a week, punch in, punch out for minimum wage. I can understand why they flipped to the total other extreme where they feel entitled to everything and they feel like they deserve everything for little to no work or effort. Whereas I'm kind of in the middle of, yeah, I feel like you should be able to have work life balance. That's why I work for myself. I'm a freelancer because I don't want to deal with bosses. I don't. I like waking up when I want to. I like traveling and working when I want to. I like deciding who I want to work with and who I don't want to work with. There is a power in that. There is freedom in that. And that's why I have that question of, are these W-2 employees where they feel like they're stuck in place, because I've been on the other side of that too, working for digital marketing agencies where I start working and then everybody else around me starts getting fired left and right, and then all of a sudden I'm thrown into this pen with all these wolves and having to pick up everybody's slack from the people who got fired, people who were supposed to train me. So, if there isn't a if there isn't a right amount of motivation for people to want to do a good job for you, Jimmy, then they're not going to. So I would ask, are you properly motivating your employees? Are you giving them an opportunity and a reason to want to do a great job for you, to want to stay motivated, to show up every day and do the best that they can? And I don't think there's anything wrong with just wanting to show up and get your paycheck. And that's okay. And I think there are people who can be really great employees and maybe they're not the best of the best, but they're good, they're consistent, they're loyal, but at the end of the day, it's a means to pay their bills. But he wants obsessive and learning people. C players are poisonous and should be transitioned to a different company immediately. Like, this is so dramatic. It's okay. We give everyone severance. They'll be fine. Like, this is so wild. This is where I'm kind of like, was this Jimmy? Like, is he this dumb to include this in here? I mean, maybe. I don't know. But this is just crazy to me. So they're poisonous. I've never heard anybody say that C players are poisonous. I have heard people say, I want people who are obsessive. And if you aren't obsessive with this, you're never going to grow. You're never going to be big. You're never going to be this. I don't want you to work with me. I'll fire you. Like, this is the mentality of the marketing industry and a lot of big corporate companies. So you can't just be another cog in the machine. But to say that these people are poisonous and should be transitioned to a different company, that's just a little bizarre. It's okay. We give them severance though. So one of the guys who we're going to be talking about, Matt Turner, he was a video editor at Mr. Beast. He recently did an interview with a different podcast. I'm going to break down that interview in one of the next videos where he comes forward with a lot of different allegations, whereas previously he was praising Mr. Beast. So I'm curious to see if just time away from Mr. Beast, if that kind of clicked in his brain of like, oh no, this was a really toxic situation. So I'm curious to dig more into that interview. But he was given like, I think only $10,000 severance, which even a few years ago isn't a lot of money. Like, that with inflation, like $10,000 really isn't going compared to Jimmy's billion-dollar empire. That is just like that's a crumb. That is a crumb. That is not even severance. That's not close to being severance pay. So then you're saying, how long is that supposed to last somebody? I mean, again, I've never been offered any kind of severance pay. I've worked with a lot of scummy agencies that have done me dirty, done me wrong, where I was entitled to severance. And at the end of the day, it just didn't make sense to proceed forward with some kind of lawsuit because the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. But $10,000, especially when you're giving it to an 18-year-old, like, that's gonna go super, super quick, but they're supposed to be praising you and seeing you as, "Oh, this is so kind of you, Jimmy. I'm so grateful for you giving me this money after the fact," when really $10,000, I mean, that's really only 2 months worth of pay for most people, right? Most average Americans make anywhere from 3 to $5,000 a month. And now I can't even imagine today in today's economy, six-figure income, low six figures, 10K a month is like middle class. So I can't even imagine if that's how much he's giving people now as severance. That's absolutely asinine to me. It's not gonna really, I mean, how long is that really going to last somebody? So then he goes into chapter one, what makes a YouTube video viral. And I'm not gonna lie, the stuff in here, this is, if Jimmy wasn't such a piece of human garbage, this could be a master class for YouTube content creators. So then he goes into creating content, like get rid of Netflix, get rid of Hulu, only watch YouTube. He talks about like, oh, like, yeah, a video you're signed is put up 40 days out. So if the average video it takes for Mr. Beast employees to create like a concept, get the location secured, get the contractors that are building some of these things all in 45 days. That is not a long time. And when you go back to his earlier statements about how we aren't Hollywood and I want to make a movie not once or twice a year, I want to make a new movie every single week. But essentially, this short film, this short version of a film for YouTube. That is an insane amount of pressure to put on, especially if you are primarily hiring younger people who are willing to do all this, who are willing to stay up super late, do whatever you ask essentially because they're seeing you as the old, almost like an older brother, like somebody to look up to and, oh, you must know you're Mr. Beast. Like, yeah, obviously, like this is what you have to do. You have to grind, grind, grind. There is no stop. So he talks about, I know I already talked about this, but if there is one thing I really love to impose on all of you, on you from all this writing, it's that you can't just dump and forget your projects. I can't stand people when people dump and forget their project on a contractor and then the day before the shoot, blame them when it's not ready. That's on you, not the contractor. Let's say we are building the world's largest water balloon and you need someone to make a giant wooden stand for it to sit on. Most people here would just call someone like JB, I don't know who JB is, and have him do it and tell him to be done by filming day. Instead, you should really have it done on a certain time frame in advance. You need to use your own intelligence based on the project. And like again, I don't think he's necessarily wrong there. Make sure that we leave enough room for error. But at the same time, Jimmy, if you're only giving them like 45 days to not only conceptualize this idea, but to secure all the items in place, secure the contractors, to make the material, pay for the materials, this, that, and the third, it's a lot to accomplish in 45 days. And clearly, you know how to get it done. But I mean, at the risk of what? Driving your employees to their mental demise? Like, I have no idea. This is my favorite part. I'm not always right. But then in this section, he does not even talk about how he's not always right. He just, again, further puts himself on a pedestal and how he's essentially running all these businesses and I'm too busy and I'm doing all of this and this is why I'm not perfect because I'm this amazing guy who's doing all these things that you're not doing because you're the underling, right? Shocker, I know. I'm young and I'll be the first to admit I'm not perfect. I promise not a single person on this planet wants us to succeed more than I do, and no matter how much work, you'll never invest more time into this company than I will. But I can't promise, like, it's so narcissistic. And I highly doubt it, Jimmy. I highly doubt that. But I can't promise I'll always be right. Okay. So, what are some of the things that you're going to admit you're wrong about? Because so far we haven't heard a peep from you. Having said that, there are ways you can help me be right more often. So he's already shifting the blame. So it's like I'm not always right, but it's your job to call me out when I'm not right. And here's how you need to help me make sure that I am right more often. So it's he's shifting the blame again. For starters, you need to understand the world I'm in and how my mind works. This book in particular is for our production company, which, by the way, is the most important company and allows everything else to succeed. Without the videos, everything else dies. This is the most important company. I could think of so many more companies, Jimmy, that are way more important than your dumb frickin' channel. So shut the frick up, bro. How are you the most important company? I'm also pretty sure that your buddy Jeff Bezos would disagree, but anyways, but it's not all I have going on. I have to be the main talent for every gaming video, every reacts video, every philanthropy video, every TikTok, Insta post, and every main channel video. Where it's so hard being me, Jimmy, which is basically 3 full-time jobs all by itself. Little things like sending videos to people for birthdays. You don't think other people aren't doing that, sending videos to their loved ones when it's their birthday? Oh, no, probably not, because they're supposed to be working overtime, not getting paid for it for you, you dumb mm. Attending events, networking, etc. All add up because I'm the face of the channel. We know. On top of being the main talent, I have to work with each channel to make sure the creatives are always evolving and not getting stale, and in general, being a visionary for them. Basically, running 4 channels at a high level better than anyone else in the world can run one. I mean, again, it's no doubt you are successful. No doubt. They know that too. That's why they're here. You don't need to remind them of that. We also have a Beast Burger, also disgusting, and I think somebody actually sued him last year for something related to this. Feastables, your disgusting chocolate, which we talked about in yesterday's video. And I still have to set the vision and be the lead creative. Yeah, because nobody wants to buy either of those products. On top of that, we dub our channels in other languages and we run a translation company. So it's just more of like victimizing himself, like, I'm worked so hard. I like, what does this have to do with you not always being right and you taking accountability for your mistakes? Like, there's nothing in here that talks about that at all. Nothing whatsoever. It's just more of, it's so hard being me. It doesn't have to be, Jimmy. You could make your life easier and not do as many things. So stop crying woe is me when this is the path you created for yourself. Nobody's making you create these videos and do all these things. So stop complaining about it. I'm tired of it. I also multiple times a week, he doesn't even know how to form like a logical sentence. A week have to call other YouTubers and see what they are testing or doing so I can always stay up to date, make sure we aren't missing anything, even though you just said that you can do this way better than anybody else. So if you can do this way better than anybody else, then I guess you have nothing left to learn then. So then why are you trying to? I guess there is something for you to learn by studying other people who are creating content on YouTube, because guess what? You're not the only creator, bro. You're not the only creator. AKA, you need me networking a lot. I don't think anybody needs you to do anything, Jimmy. I really don't, but okay. What I'm trying to say is, I have to run 4 channels, 3 businesses, a charity, a network, slash maintain our image all at the same time. Wah, wah, wah. So when you need something from me, you have to understand that I'm probably not as knowledgeable about a video as you. One of your videos? Whatever you don't tell me, I don't know. When getting an answer from me, it's ideal you do the research and come to me with context and options. Instead of saying, in a coming up video, that makes 0 sense, by the way. In a coming up video, you mean upcoming video, we are giving away a car. What do you think of this Lexus? It's only $10,000. I don't know any Lexus unless it's like being used and has serious problems is $10,000. If you could buy me a Lexus that's 10 grand, I will definitely buy it. Which is how 99% of questions are asked towards me. Do this instead. We have a coming up video. I can't even read it. It's so hard to read this. Would you rather video. One of the bits at the 6 to 9 minute mark will be we will be giving away a car. We are still on budget, and the budget for this car is 10,000. I checked with PM if we could go up another 5K if you really wanted to. I searched all of North Carolina for cool ass cars around that price point, and here are five I found that got pre approved by Creative, all on budget. I also got five other backup options that are less cool looking and more average if you're going for that. Here's a picture of all 10 cars, the miles on the cars, and all the information you'd want. Which of these cars do you think is best, or should I get other options? If you want to look like you're doing your job and don't care about the success of the video, ask me questions like the first example. I mean, I don't see what's wrong with saying, like, in an upcoming video, we're giving away a car. What do you think of this Lexus? Like, what is wrong with that question? Meanwhile, he's saying in the beginning of all this, it's okay to come for me and ask questions if you want to learn more. But if you ask me certain questions, then you're just a dumb fuck. Excuse my language. Do you think people can read your mind, bro? If you want to take accountability and make your videos happen with a high probability of success, do the second option. This doesn't just apply to me, it applies to anyone high up you expect to make a decision. Oh, I love this one. Communication lines. It's very important as a company we maintain proper communication lines on and off set. There is always someone responsible for everything on the video. And if multiple people are responsible for the same thing, then that's a problem and needs to be fixed immediately. I'm not even understanding what that means. Ideally, when communicating across departments, you go up and then over. If you skip and just go below you, prize must prize must then call and let the people in charge know. Let's say you're a production coordinator and you call a writer and tell him you need some bits about a sandwich being cooked with lava. Seems harmless. Except now Tyler, head of creative, has no idea what his writer is working on, and worse, does not know that's an option when he directs the video. Will, head of production, also has no idea this has been set into motion, and when planning and tracking the progress of the video, doesn't know how to account for this. Will later finds out about it and assumes Tyler approved the bit and starts planning on how to make lava, and then wastes 3 days making lava until Tyler catches one. I mean, like, this is like a whole lot of mumbo jumbo that I'm like hardly even following here. So, like, what essentially are you saying? This is what happens when you don't follow proper communication lines. You didn't even give any advice about proper communication lines. Like, this doesn't even ideally, when communicating across departments, you go up and then over. Like, do you wanna show a you're not even naming, like, some of these people. You're saying, "Okay, Tyler is head of creative, and then Will," but what about the people that are above and then over? Like, that would be helpful if you were like, "Here's an onboarding document. Here are the people you should get connected with." What about any kind of training? Do they get any kind of training? Do they have somebody who's actively helping them get prepared? Do they have a 2-week probation period? Do they have a 3-month probation period? Anything like that? Where they're actually understanding the protocol and the steps and process of how to do this. I mean, this is why I'm almost inclined to believe that these are contractors that he's instead of hiring W2, but I don't know. That I'm just speculating here. Because the way he's kind of saying, like, when you join, you should be expected to know how to do everything, and we're not going to offer proper training. This is your only training manual. Like, that's how it reads to me. If when this bit was requested, Tyler and Allie were called first, days of bullshit would have been saved. Seems simple, but it happens dozens of times a week and causes tons of double and triple work. Wah. Not for you though, because what are you doing, Jimmy? Oh yeah, you're running 4chan. It's so hard to make an Instagram post. It's so hard to network. It's so hard. Wah. Give me a freaking break. Then he talks about creativity, always have a backup day. Don't take anything at face value. Always dig. This one's good too. One of the most common themes you're probably seeing is accountability, and this doubles down. There's been nothing about accountability. I mean, actually, yes, there has been a ton about accountability, but not for you, Jimmy. What are you taking accountability for on? Nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This is just so ironically funny to me because he's like on this high horse talking about taking accountability, being a good leader, being proactive, being a good team member, being conscious of the other workload by your fellow staff members, being an A player, not a C player, not even a B player. You don't even want to be a B player. You got to be an A player at all times. And now he's saying, don't take anything at face value, always dig. And again, remember at the very beginning of this, folks, he said, take everything that we say in this with a grain of salt. Like, so should I be following everything word by word by the book with this? Like, what do you want me to do, Jimmy? One of the most common themes you're probably seeing is accountability, and this doubles down on that. Don't take anything at face value. Always dig. This is particularly important when dealing with people outside the MrBeast production team. Someone says something is too good to be true, find out why. If it's fishy, investigate. If you need 10,000 pillows by next week and you've called 10 pillow companies and none of them have more than a few hundred in stock, but then the 11th company magically has 10,000 pillows, investigate. Are they drop shipping? Are the pillows shitty? What the F does no one want your pillows? Push and get answers. I mean, why would that be like though their job? And this is what also is confusing too, because he talked about how he could write a separate book for all these different roles, and you're not even addressing what roles are attached to some of these things. So, like, you could be talking to, like, does everybody share responsibilities? Like, your video editor is also your talent scout and also location scout and also your bitch errand boy who is supposed to call up these pillow companies when you haven't even given them clear direction about what type of pillows you're looking for, Jimmy. The ones with the little feathers on them and the silk pillowcases. I mean, it's just this is like very disgustingly toxic and dangerous, in my opinion, because it's like a blanket employee manual that has nothing. And I've literally worked for a company that is exactly like this, and I got out very quickly. What tends to happen is people think their job is done finding the 10K pillows. Well, that's what you asked, though. That's what you asked. I need 10K pillows by next week. Okay. I found 10K pillows and just ordered them only for us to find problems with them when they arrive, but it's too close to the filming window to fix it. Don't overly trust people outside the company. So this also too is like extremely, and I would love to see like I know last time I said a body language expert for that interview that we um what broke down a little bit in the beginning of yesterday's video, but I would also love a linguist break down some of the words, phrases, language he uses to describe certain things. Like this for me is just so telling. Don't overly trust people outside the company. Like that to me screams a little bit of paranoia. And I feel like that says a lot more. Like there's something deeper to that. Investigate and verify what they say, or it is your fault if they don't pull through. But I mean, how are you supposed to, I mean, even if you think there are no problems with it, how is it their fault if there are problems with it when it arrives after they order it? Like that is not, there are other people who are responsible. And this is the false facade. Like he wants to look like a hero to the outside world, but then to his own employees, who are the ones responsible for actually making him as wealthy and as successful as he is, he treats them like garbage. It goes back to communication, higher form of communication. If you spend any amount of time with James Warren, who we talked about earlier, you'll hear him bring up higher forms of communication a lot because it's important and somehow very overlooked by most people. The worst thing you could ever do when you need something for your critical component is email someone at the company. This I love too, because he's like, emailing them isn't enough. You have to call them, you have to send daily text messages and harass them, spam them to death. The best is to talk to them in real life. It's very important you know when to call people for stuff, grab them in real life, and when to text them. The lower the form of communication, the more miscommunication you will face. As I'm typing this, you have no idea if I'm laughing, smiling, happy, mad, or sad. You're probably all of the above, you weirdo. You can't read my body language or my face. And because of that, it's not guaranteed that you'll understand what I'm conveying. Now you're a body language expert? Like, what? Need more toilet paper in the bathroom? A text is probably fine. Why aren't you supplying your employees with? Oh, I'm sorry, I'll go back to full screen, but why aren't you supplying your employees with toilet paper? Why do they have to ask? Why isn't somebody why isn't there like a, I don't know, like somebody whose job is to clean up the office, like why, or supply s- inventory of just basic human needs? This is concerning. Was it bring your own toilet paper? Text is probably fine. Am I supposed to find you, like hunt you down, Jimmy, and be like, hey, how am I supposed to do that if I got my pants around my ankles and I'm going number two and I can't exactly get up? If and I only to realize, oh, I don't have any toilet paper in here. Like, what am I supposed to do? That is insane. 1 week out from a video, and the thing you were working out just went south. Minimum a multi way call with the heads of the video. Ideally, grab them in real life if you can. The more complex what needs to be said is, the higher form of the communication you should use. Call first, then text if they don't answer. Since we are on top of communication, written communication also does not constitute communication unless they confirm they read it. Well, I mean, ultimately, that's the fault of the person who isn't reading the email. But then I would just say, hey, we don't use email for communication. They have platforms like Slack. Like, that is the standard in my industry, is everybody uses Slack or even Telegram sometimes too to communicate, and that's the fastest way. But they say this is the fastest way to reach me. Or in my case, some of my clients that I work with are like, I don't really use it. I don't really check it. Just text me. Okay, cool. And that's the form of communication we have. But I'm not in there daily harassing them, because if they don't answer me, then they're likely busy. And I will follow up in a timely manner after that. So I get what he's talking about with like responsibility and taking accountability. But like, I mean, this is like crazy. This is just like excessive. And like, what if you can't track the person in real life? What if they don't answer the call? What if they don't answer the text either? Is that still your fault? No. And he talks about owning your mistakes, which is interesting. And a lot of people pointed this section out too. I hate excuses, and I despise with my entire soul when people just try to save face instead of learn from how they messed up. How about how you messed up, sir? How about how you messed up? How you knowingly hired a registered PDF file. How about that? How about the fact that you literally forced people, contestants for your show, to sleep in $10 sleeping bags on the floor of a stadium, only allowing them to sleep for a few hours every night, not giving them more than 2 meals a day, sometimes without 12 hours in between. How about you denying people, your staff denying people, laughing at women for asking if they could change their sanitary napkin? because it's not a medical emergency. What about that? Seems like you're doing a lot of saving face right now by hiding behind your PR team, you loser. Mistakes are okay. So here he goes. Mistakes are okay though. Mistakes are okay. But it seems like it's not based on everything else we've read so far. Genuinely, they are, and I expect you to make a lot. That's perfectly fine. Is it though? Every veteran here has a cost me $1 million at one point or another. And you can go ask them yourself if I ever held it over their heads. Seems like you are still a little bit bitter about it if you're bringing it up here. The reason I'm okay with F ups is because I know that's how you learn. I see it as me investing in you and your brain, hence why I have zero tolerance for C players and they must go immediately. Those F ups could be done by an A player that will retain the information and learn. So, like, he has to like clarify himself too because he's completely contradicting himself. Not only is he being a hypocrite here, but he's all because your entire brand has been built on saving face. And this isn't just with the Beast game stuff, this isn't the first time either. There's more stuff coming out too, especially in that recent interview with his former video editor, Matt Turner, which we'll go over in our next video. I just beg that you learn from every mistake and try not to repeat it. That's when it gets annoying. So, and here I will say, like, I am somebody who doesn't like excuses. I don't like when people whine and cry about how, oh, I'm so broke and oh, everything woe is me. I can't stand, I personally cannot stand people like that because I am somebody who has felt the struggle. I don't have, I wasn't born into money. I worked really hard for the business that I built. I'm working hard right now trying to grow this channel and create essentially a second business. So I don't really have a personal tolerance for people who just like to whine and complain and say, oh, I'm broke and, you know, I don't really have any options and I'm trying, even though they're not really trying. I don't have sympathy for those people. I don't, because for me, when I was broke and I dropped out of college, my parents said, hey, we're not going to, give you any kind of money or anything like that. You have to go out and get your own job, which is understandable, right? I decided to drop out of school. So I became a dancer. That's how I made my money. I literally did the thing that I thought was the best way for me to make money at the time, and it was difficult and it was hard, but I didn't complain about it because it was my choice. It was my choice, and you always have a choice. So I feel like some of the principles that he talks about in this isn't really as shocking or toxic for me. Some people are like, "Oh my god, like I can't believe he's saying that." And I disagree with that to an extent because I don't like people who make excuses. Like, you always have a choice. You can always do anything. Like, nobody has to resort to selling drugs. Like, you don't have to. You just need to open up your mind up to knowing that there are other opportunities to you and there are other things that you can do to make money, right? You don't have to be broke or poor if you don't want to. I believe it's a choice for most people, in my opinion. For most people, in my opinion. But like the way he goes about it is like, oh, that's when it gets annoying. So, like, okay, like I've never, ever, ever ever once fired somebody on the spot for messing up. That's not what we've heard. You have nothing to be afraid of. Own shit so we can address how to fix it and then move on. It's maybe not like, hey, they didn't get adequate training. And that's where I have the problem with this is like, you're saying that they're allowed to come to you and ask questions, but if they're not getting adequate training, Jimmy, on the operational side, because I've also, again, had this, and this is why I'm curious, are these W-2 employees, do they have, like, with the 2-week trial period, are they just expected to go in and just do everything, or is there training? Is there somebody who's helping mentor them as well too? Because if you're saying you're investing in them and their brain, well, then that would include some kind of training, right? Like, do you have a program that they go to? I mean, this is a standard for a lot of companies that they do have some sort of training, whether it's somebody who's actually they're shadowing or some kind of aside from this piece of crap Google document, right? Essentially, or is it a program or class or course, something that they can take, or you can even certify them too? I mean, That's where if they keep messing up, then I think you need to look a little bit deeper. And if this is a recurring problem for you and you're creating more C players or attracting a lot of C players, Jimbo, maybe you need to look deeper into yourself and own your mistakes and say, "Oh, we need a better way to turn more of these what would be average employees into superstars." If they don't have the training available, how can you expect them to perform at their best? Nothing comes before your prios, so priorities. When you're being assigned tasks, you should have what we call a prio list. If Ali says your prios are to get a Lamborghini under 200K, I don't even know what world that would be possible, but all right. Get it wrapped in anime characters. Make a custom steering wheel. This is also just completely weirdly ironic considering the Ava Chris Tyson stuff that came out with their chat room. Then nothing on this frickin' planet is allowed to come between you and getting those priors done. If the other team asks for your help and you spend 2 days helping them and fall behind on getting your Lamborghini secured, that's your fault. If the studio is burning down and you stop working to put out the fire and don't get the Lamborghini, that's your fault. Haha, jokes, haha. But seriously, don't let everything come before your pride. Like he inserts a lot of this, like, I'm just kidding. Like, take it with a grain of salt. I'm not being serious. But then you're also yelling at us in all caps and saying it's your fault. It's your fault. Like, what if you have a family emergency, bro? Like, is there anything in this that's actually useful? Like, there's nothing, like, not even anything about benefits, not even about paid time off. Nothing. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Or people that you should be syncing up to, syncing up with, what the next couple of weeks are going to look like, what happens at the end of the probation period. There's nothing that's actually beneficial or useful for any new employee that joins Mr. Beast's company. It's just a Google document of him screaming at people. Um, Use of consultants. So I mean, this is I mean, not bad advice, right? Saying like the best way to get better is to learn from people who have done it themselves, and I agree with that. So like he does say some smart things, but then he goes back to being Jimmy and just being a just like a complete and utter terrible boss. Math, science, vision, approvals, budget. Everything you need can be solved by one of these five things above. Math, science, visual approvals, or budgets. It's like, what does that even mean? It's so vague. A lot of people had a problem with this. No does not mean no because of what this has to do with alluding to consent. And I agree with that. I mean, again, as an SA survivor, like this is, I probably wouldn't word it this way, but I kind of understand what he's saying here. I kind of say, and I know that some people might come for me about this, but I don't think this is one of the worst things that he's said in this manual of, essentially saying, taking out the connotation and tying it into consent. You probably could word it better, but saying like, don't give up. If that was the message and just saying like, hey, if $1 Tree says, hey, you want to book a location, we want to book a location here for our next video, and the manager says no, I understand. Like, you don't necessarily give up, like, you keep trying. And I don't see it really as like a form of harassment or bullying into people doing that. Um, but I also think he could have worded this like the title of this section and saying like, "No, you can't film here." Um, and he's right. I mean, like a lot of times people will say like, "No, like you can't do this." Okay, well, let me try the next place. Um, this is where it's a little weird. See if any of them are fans or if they have any kids that are fans. Like that's the weird part. Try talking to their boss's boss. Have me DM them on Twitter or social team. So pretty much try everything at all costs. Don't just stop because one person told you no. And I agree with that. Again, just coming from my background in marketing, like just because every no leads you to a yes. You don't just stop at the first no. You keep going. But there are ways to do it without coming off as annoying or weird, Jimmy. This is one of the many tools that, when combined, dramatically improve your probability of success when producing here. So, I mean, again, I don't have as big a problem with this section as a lot of people. My problem is the no does not mean no. Like, it's especially just with the connotation behind it, and pairing that with the Ava Chris Tyson allegations, the other allegations that have come out too. I definitely feel like that's maybe I would have used a different title for that. This is where I have a problem. Work on multiple videos every day. So, like, instead of doing one video a day, even though he's saying, I don't care how long, like, hours are irrelevant. Like, I don't care how long it takes for you to do something or not do something. But you do. You do care. You want everything done fast. If it's not done fast, you're doing it wrong. And this is where you're contradicting yourself from earlier. Please do not come in and only work on one video during a workday. That's how you fall behind on future videos. Create a nasty cycle. So where you could be a helpful boss and say, here's some tips and tricks of how to keep up with your workload, you could maybe try saying something like, I understand sometimes this is a fast-paced environment. I get it. To make sure that you're on top of everything, here's a couple of ways that some of our employees have organized their schedule to get more done in a shorter amount of time. They bulk edit. Like, these are some of the things that I've done when I worked with, like, sometimes 10 to 11 clients at one time, where I've had so much work. I've had to write daily emails for those clients, and I've had to sit down and say, okay, like, let me bulk write for these couple of clients on this day. And, like, you just figure out ways to organize it. Is it healthy? No, not necessarily, but when you're working in a fast-paced environment, if you're working for good people, it can be definitely helpful and encouraging, and they will be there to help you and give you ideas and tips. And I feel like that would have been a better way to approach this, Jimmy, instead of saying, don't only work on one video. If you're hiring 18-year-olds, who just graduated high school, and all they do all day is watch MrBeast videos, but they don't actually have experience really editing a lot of videos. Whereas, a 10, 20-year plus veteran might, working in a fast paced environment, you can't expect them to just be able to turn it on like that. That's on you. That's where you need to own your mistakes, Jimmy. If you drop everything and go all in on a video for 3 days, then that's 3 days of your other videos will fall behind. And eventually you'll have to drop other videos to focus on those videos. And it will snowball into, you can't do anything but focus on what's right in front of you because you murdered any lead time you had. That's an interesting choice of word. If you only ever work on one video during a day, you failed as a MrBeast employee that day. So these are my expectations. You have to work on multiple videos a day. You don't even say how many videos. But otherwise you fail. Otherwise you're a C. You're a C player. And we don't have time for C players because you get fired when you're a C player. But I don't fire people on the spot. It's okay if you ask questions. It's okay if you make mistakes. But you're also a failure if you do. There's so much, like, hypocrisy in this. I thought this one was interesting too. So, like, he's saying be able to hold a camera. Like, sometimes we want you to also be a producer. And, like, I feel like this should be something where if somebody's interested in learning how to do this, not expected to do this. But he's saying if you want to, everybody has their roles in the company. But if you lead and produce videos for me, like, on top of whatever other work you have to do, that's also supposed to be important, because if you're working on multiple videos a day, how are you going to have time to also be a camera person, Jimmy? But all right. With a 90% success rate, I don't care if you, this is so gross, pee in the sink every day, I'll still love you. Well, I mean, it seems like you don't have a problem with a lot of your employees doing questionable things. I think that's the least of your problems, but all right. Having said that, it'd be nice if at some point you got training on your style of holding camera. You got training. Are you going to provide that training, Jimmy? Are you going to pay them to get trained to learn a new skill? Are you going to invest in their doing that? Because if you are, that's great. That's an amazing skill to learn. Of course, everybody, I'm sure every kid who is a MrBeast fan would love to get the opportunity to actually be on set and know what it's like to hold the camera and work on a high quality production, I'm sure they would die for that opportunity. But are you going to provide them with that training, or are you just going to expect them to do it on their own and not pay for it, even when it's not their job to do that thing? If, for example, there are only a few scenes that need a couple extra men, I'd love for us to not have to fly, house, transport, and baby more cameramen when we could just have a few people from production or creative help for those overflow scenes, because typically the more cameramen we have filming, the less important each shot becomes. So he doesn't like outsiders. He doesn't trust people, remember? Nobody outside the company, which I think is also extremely telling considering how the Beast games are being run. And he also doesn't want to pay for it. That's essentially what he's saying. He's like, I would love to not have to bring all these professional people, people who probably know what they're doing and could do it way better than the people who have no idea what they're doing and are holding a camera for the first time. But I don't want to pay those people. And I know you'll do it for nothing because I'm Mr. Beast and you're my employee and you do what I tell you to do. That's how that comes across. Now you're going to jump to creative. Okay. This is so disorganized. But before you do, I still have tons of notes around producing content that I can't really break into their own sections, so I want to rapid fire them here so at least hear them once before starting your journey. Do not leave contestants waiting in the sun. Ideally waiting in general for more than 3 hours. That is weird. That is so bizarrely weird. And I've heard some reports about him leaving people in the sun for days at a time, which reminds me a lot of the Ruby Frankie case and when she was punishing her children and she had left them out in the sun for several hours and they had gotten sun poisoning and I believe even developed skin cancer from being out in the sun for days. So that's a medical emergency and concern and like weird. Don't leave people out in the sun for more than 3 hours. Squid Game, it costs us $500,000 and boys versus girls. So here he is talking about Squid Game, even though he's not Squid Game. Beast Games is totally different than Squid Game, but you keep bringing it up. So, okay. It got a lot of people out. Ask James to know more. Okay, that's weird. Spectacles are videos that only the Mr. Beast channel can do. Not every video should be a spectacle, and we realize these videos are hard, but that's the point. I hate having tons of people on set. If someone is necessary, then that's fine. But if not, kick them off set or have them watch from behind a monitor. Create an environment where the contestants also feel natural. I'd rather you be honest with each other than nice to each other. Why can't you be both? Why can't you be kind, respectful, and honest? I mean, you can do both, Jimmy. It is possible to not be a human piece of poop stain, but also be honest with somebody and say it. Look, I'll try it out right now. Jimmy, I think there's a way for you to be a good leader and a good boss, and for you to get more and harvest more A players without you necessarily expecting more than maybe what they can provide. Maybe if you offer more training, maybe if you show up to meetings, you host weekly meetings, weekly check ins with your employees. Do you give bonuses? Do you throw Christmas parties? Do you give them an incentive to work hard for you? Do you offer benefits? What does the severance package look like? See, I'm coming off very kind and respectful. These are just a few ideas that I have, Jimmy, on how you can improve your work environment for your employees and make them want to stay around longer. And guess what? When you treat your employees right and you offer things like paid time off and overtime, they'll want to continue to work with you and they'll recommend even better employees to work with you as well too, and they won't stop gloating about you and help you maintain your reputation. See, that wasn't so hard. That wasn't so hard, right? Not that hard to be nice. It's actually harder to be a jerk, in my opinion. Do not talk down to talent, even though you talk down to talent all the time. All the time. Your own talent, people who are your employees who you love, apparently. I mean, that's pretty ironic considering that you curse allegedly out your employees and bully them, but I guess it's not okay to talk to the outside people, the people who are the stars of your show, right? I need them to be happy and in good moods, and those boys are special to me. That's creepy. That's whose boy? Like, what boys are you talking about? Like your crew, your gross crew of Ava Chris Tyson and the PDF file and all those guys? Like, who are you talking about? That is so gross. Ideally, most talks with talents, Chris, Carl, Chandler, and Nolan. I guess these are your boys. That's so weird. Go through me, Allie, or Tyler to avoid confusion amongst them. Me like simple. Okay. The simpler, the better. Apply with a grain of salt. So I guess this is the one part where he was talking about earlier. But not this, right? Not that. We pivot a lot. Be ready to have everything flipped on its head at a moment's notice. LOL. I want money spent to be shown on camera, ideally. So, okay. If you're spending over $10,000 on something and it won't be shown on camera, seriously think about it. Well, not for nothing, Jimmy, but what if it's their money? Can they not spend their own money however they want without it being broadcasted to the entire world? Not everybody is looking to gloat how much money they have and shove it in the face of people or just hand out $10,000 to strangers because of the goodness of their heart. Maybe some people don't need a camera shoved in their face to actually be good, kind human beings and to help others. But you apparently do because otherwise it's not worth it. And you should seriously think about it. Work with intensity. Push outwards, not inwards. Put all nighters weeks before the shoots so you don't have to before the shoot. Why can't you just, like, promote adequate sleep? Like, what is wrong? This is what's wrong with, like, the hustle culture, especially in the marketing space. It's like you have to give your all. You can't take weekends off. You can never not think about it. You always have to answer the client even when you don't want to, even when it's a weekend because the client's always right and you need to be on top of everything. Otherwise, you could potentially lose your job. That is the toxic work environment that the entire industry, this is goes way beyond Mr. Beast. Trust me. If something goes wrong on shoot days, always check to see if it can be made into content. A tree fall. A tree falls on your car and breaks the 100 vases we needed to give away. So a tree falls on your car, but the thing you only care about is 100 vases. How is this funny? That's effing hilarious, and we should mention it in the video. How is that funny that a tree falls on? Are you replacing that car for them, Jimmy? Because I don't think that's very funny. Feasibility is working to see if the critical components of a video are actually possible. Example would be if I wanted to play hide and seek in the world's largest building. If you did feasibility on this basically means you're trying to see if it's possible to get that building. If you do, then we have a video and it should go into production. If you can't, then that's why it was in feasibility, so no one else wasted time. Never do anything that could make us look bad from a PR perspective. You don't need other people to do that for you, Jimmy. You're doing a pretty stand-up job of doing that yourself. But also look at some of your boys. Your boys who mean so much to you. Think about what they're doing for your PR perspective. Oh, this is good. What is the goal of our content? To excite me. The goal of our content, like as if that didn't already answer the question. He has to repeat it again because that's how narcissistic this douche canoe is. The goal of our content is to excite me. So it's not to help others. Since a lot of your content is focused around charity, right, Jimmy? It's not to help others. It's not to bring joy to other people. It's to make you happy. I'm so glad you finally admitted it. I'm so glad. It's to excite me. Me. That may sound weird to some of you, Yeah, no, duh, it sounds weird. Especially if you're new, but to me, it's what's most important. So nothing else matters except pleasing the boss. If that's not toxic, I don't know what is. If I'm not excited to get in front of that camera and film the video, it's just simply not going to happen. I'm not fake, and I will be authentic. Really? Really? Okay. Okay, Jimmy. That's partly why this channel does so well. And if I'm not excited by the video, we're effed. Luckily, I'd say I'm a pretty predictable guy. I mean, you seem pretty unpredictable. You seem pretty erratic at times, at least in this regard. He also has like a really weird, uncomfortable laugh, too, just to say. What excites me is what I believe will make the audience happy. So, not even like what will make them happy or making them happy, it's what you believe will make them happy. So, essentially, it's what makes you happy. Your audience doesn't even matter. That's what it always has been and always will be. I'm willing to count to 100,000, bury myself alive, and walk a marathon in the largest pairs of shoes if I must. Cuz you're such a martyr, Jimmy. You're oh my god, you do it for the people because it's what the people want. It's what will make them happy. Oh my god, you're such a martyr. Such a martyr. I just want to do what makes me happy and ultimately the viewers happy. Notice how he doesn't even talk about like, "Hey, this is a fun place for everybody to work in." Like, you'll be happy too. It's important that everybody these are ideas that you're equally as excited about as well too. And if you are excited about it, I'm gonna give you the opportunity to get on camera and there's ways for you to progress and grow in this there's not even anything about that. It's just if you don't make me happy, then you're a failure. Oh, yeah, and the audience too. Yeah, 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 yeah. Ultimately, right? It's just an afterthought. This channel is my baby, and I've given up my life for it. Nobody asked you to, Jim. I'm so emotionally connected to it, and it's sad. LOL. It's almost like reminds me of like a teenage girl writing this. I'm just like, it really is. But this is the one thing I will never compromise on. I have zero issues throwing away a multi-million dollar video if I don't think it's up to my standards and is good for the audience. We must always be improving and innovating. The camera angles need to always get better. The pacing, the story, the jokes, the color, the lighting, the music, the props, the people, our framing, our ideas, literally everything must always be improving and innovating. Jesus. Because that is what excites me. Me. That is literally what I live for, to see these videos get better and better and ultimately make the viewers happy. He has to keep repeating this too. And I heard like from a couple of linguistics that when you repeat yourself over and over again, you say the same thing the same exact way multiple times, that is a sign of narcissism. So he talks about what makes good content. Is is this where he mentions Ava? How to measure content of success. At one point, he does mention Ava Chris. Oh, our audience. Here are our screenshots from the back end. Europe is a big percent, but it's broken up into countries, so it doesn't seem like it. Um, Age and gender. So primarily male. It says 18 to 24. But then he says down here, our content is consumed by everyone at this point. Kids watch the videos with their mom, even though our female viewership is only 30%. That's still 9-figure views a month from women. And it's worldwide, but not too worldwide. 50% plus is still America and Europe. But despite saying all that, at its core, if I had to describe it, I'd say the average MrBeast viewer is a teenage memer that likes video games. So here he is blatantly recognizing his viewers are under the age of 18, which is really interesting. which is really interesting. You should watch our videos, because if you don't, we get mad. Brand deals or content, understand culture. What you consume on social media, when you watch YouTube, TV, the games you play, etc., are what I like to call your information diet. Here we go. Chris Tyson, our first subscriber and the guy in the videos, is a wonderful. So I guess this is before Chris Tyson became Ava Chris. So I don't know how long ago, like what, if this is a recent iteration, like that hasn't even been updated from that. So I'm curious how old this is and how many iterations of this document there are. It's a wonderful example of an information diet being used to perfection. The dude is funny as F. I've never met anyone in my entire life that can make people laugh like he can. And I never understood why he was so good at it until I lived with him for a few years. The dude watches an obscene amount of cartoons and stupid crap. His eyeballs exist to inhale copious amounts of just goofy, dumb, and brain numbing content. And as a result, he can quote almost any line from any episode of SpongeBob. That's also terrifying. He's able to draw from so much stupid crap in his head as inspiration to make jokes and be quirky. As a result, he is effing hilarious. But let's imagine a different Chris. Let's say instead of cartoons and stupid crap, his information diet was stocks and investing advice. And for 5 years, that's all he consumed. Do you think he'd be just as funny as he currently is? No. He, in my opinion, wouldn't even be 20% as funny. And that's kind of like offensive. He's saying like you can't be funny if you're into stocks and investing. Like, okay. I mean, yeah, maybe that's not your cup of tea, but, like, that doesn't mean that you can't be funny too. If you're a writer or a director, you really need to monitor and perfect your information diet. If your diet is not correct, you won't have a good pulse on culture. I don't want you to be a Chris. In fact, I think that would probably do you harm. Talent needs to inhale. So, like, here, now he finally spells it right. Inhale instead of inhale. Cartoons, so they can be funny, writers need to inhale inspiration. Let's say there is a purple fruit in the middle of Australia that, when eaten, makes you 2 feet taller. If it truly did exist, you wouldn't have known that until just right now. But now that you know of it, you can draw on it for inspiration of every piece writing going forward, yada yada yada. It might take 10 videos or even 100. You can't get inspired by things you don't know exist. I mean, yeah, essentially he's saying like consume, consume, consume. Again, a lot of the same stuff that I've heard in the marketing world, but I thought it was interesting here specifically because he mentions how hilarious Chris Tyson is and his type of humor. I don't think he's that funny. Do you? I think he's actually kind of gross and sick in the head. Or she now. Um it's okay for the boys to be childish. So this was like alarm bells, alarm bells, alarm bells. And I don't know how many people like called this out or not. Now we're in the end of this just really dense read. It's okay for the boys to be like, who are the boys? Why are you calling them boys? That's gross, weird, and uncomfortable. You're talking about your fellow employees, people that they should be respecting. Why aren't you addressing them in a more professional way? Would be my question. And it makes everybody else who's an employee onboarding feel like they are not the cool kids. Like you have this group of favorites that are they're your homies, your boys, your loser group of friends who couldn't get their own job and make it out on their own, who you recruited because you know that you can bully them into doing whatever you want because you'll just throw money in their face. Those boys, they can be childish. Like, that's grossly concerning. And it's okay for them to be like, what do you mean by childish? I have an idea of what you mean. Cough, cough, Ava Chris Tyson, cough, cough. Talent wants to draw a flappy appendage on the whiteboard in the video or do something stupid, let them. Is that really setting the precedence for, like, professionalism? Meanwhile, you're talking about, like, your image and don't do anything to embarrass your PR image. Meanwhile, you're letting them a bunch of frat boys, loser burnouts that you probably have been friends since high school with, drop flapping appendages on a whiteboard. Yeah, these are people you're supposed to look up to, kids, and respect. Oh, yeah, and don't forget that his content is geared towards kids. He just said teenagers. So you're letting your friends slash employees just act like delinquents all the time. And it's okay if they do, but if you do, it's unprofessional. It's unprofessional. They can have fun, but you can't have fun. Assuming they know all the risks and aren't missing context of why it's not safe. This is so concerning. And when we get into the chat room stuff, you'll understand a little bit more why. People like when we are in our natural element of stupidity. Really do everything you can. I mean, he just sounds like they sound like the group of lost boys who never grew up. Really do everything you can to empower the boys when filming. Ew, it's so gross that he's calling them the boys. Ugh. And help them make content. Help them be idiots. We don't fake things. Okay. Um Make sure to prep contestants and try to create an environment where they feel comfortable talking. If you wrote a banger piece of content, but it is a 50-50 chance of working, write another piece of content. I mean, it's like you don't, but this is like what I have a problem with because in marketing, and you should know this, Jimmy, is like you really don't know something is going to hit until you try. You have to test. You have to test. You have to take a couple of bombs. I've seen it even happen on my channel. Now, granted, I'm a newer creator, but in the marketing space, yeah, you're always testing. That's how you learn. You learn what becomes a banger by testing what sucks first. Like that's just standard practice and you have no way of it knowing if it's going to work or not work if you're trying something new until you try it. And if it flops and you learn from it. So, that's kind of dumb advice. Content is unlimited. Don't be lazy. Run your content by as many people as possible for inspo, how you can make it even better because we're so approachable, the boys. It's like the lamest thing I've ever heard in my life. Oh yeah, his career. I want famous people in our video. Okay. Let me call up Taylor Swift, right? See if she wants to be in her next sick video drop, yo. Don't ever put me in a situation where I have to lie because I won't, and it will screw the video. Well, you've done a whole lot of lying recently, Jimbo, but okay. And you seem to be just fine doing it. No dull moments in videos. You can't fake intensity in videos. He mentioned that actually yesterday in some of the articles we talked about the Beast games. The video endings must always be abrupt to protect retention. This isn't really a creative thing, but in general, when on set, be attentive and engaged. Filming days are stressful enough. Be useful, please. All these blanket statements with no substance and no helpful or beneficial, like useful, actionable steps that they can take. Other than like the content data stuff where I'm like, wow, like that is smart and that is useful. But I mean, everything else is like nothing is geared towards setting them up for success. It's just you saying, "Don't suck," and if you do, you're done. You're out, and I'll make sure you never work again. Your career, chapter 4. Like these aren't even like there must be like missing pages because like there's some of these aren't even like titled as chapters, but we're almost at the end, guys. If you made it this far, I don't know how we did, but we did. You are probably at least semi interested in this being your career. And if I was reading this too, like a few years ago when I just first started getting into marketing, right? I've seen Mr. Beast actually post some stuff on LinkedIn, like hiring for this. I may have even applied. I don't even remember as like a content creator. It didn't go anywhere. I've also applied for other companies too of major gurus, different spaces as well too that had similar company policies to this. And if I was reading this as like an 18-year-old kid who's like, wow, Mr. Beast would be my dream job. And I read all this, I'd be like, what the actual F? Like, you could not pay me enough money to like this red flag after red flag after red flag. So I wanted to chat about it because how are you chatting with them if you're literally saying you're too busy about for them? But read this manual, right? This is the playbook that you should follow. Because if you're ambitious and want to dedicate your life to work, you pick the best company in America to do it at. I beg to differ. And a lot of your former employees beg to differ. I really don't care to hoard a bunch of money. And I deeply believe in rewarding people that help this business get to where it needs to be. But why haven't you talked about that at all? Like, there's nothing useful. Like, any onboarding packet, and you guys can attest to this too if you have any type of job ever. You've been onboarded into a company, you get a packet. It tells you everything that you're going to get, right? Everything, benefits, potential bonuses, right? Things that would be discussed in the interview process. This would be a reiteration of everything you talked about to say, okay, like, cool, I have documented proof of what kind of benefits, what kind of commissions, performance-based commissions I could get. Because you're saying this is a performance-based company, and if that's the case, then you should give performance-based incentives for the people who are literally generating hundreds of millions of dollars for you. And if you don't care about hoarding money, then you should have no problem incentivizing these people, other than your other close group of the boys who have you give Lambos and you rig your lotteries for and give them new cars and this and new houses and all this. Oh, it's so disgusting. I'm so sick of this guy. Um, but before I get into that, let's talk about the future. Let's talk about the future, Jimmy. As I write this, we have 2 teams, and that will grow to 4 in the next year, possibly 8 in the next 2 years. But I can't talk about that because James will kill me. We need more leaders in the company. We need hardworking, obsessive, coachable, intelligent grinders that can step up and take some of these leadership spots over the next 2 years. Every single department has an opportunity for you to grow in, and you're in luck because we don't do yearly reviews. Okay, why not? Why don't you do monthly reviews? We do whenever the F you want reviews. If you want to become a production manager, tell James your intention and ask him why you suck. How you can become better. Seriously, he'll give you a list of things that you need to improve to become what we need, and if you actually listen and master those things, we will give you a shot at the role. Only problem is most people think they are better than they really are and don't take seriously when they give them things to improve. And then wonder why they never move up. I mean, that I do agree with because most people do, including you probably, Jim, that they're way better at what they are and they're afraid to ask for criticism. That would be a nicer way to say is like, hey, instead of I get the direct bluntness. I get it. And I'm not saying I fully disagree with some of the things he's saying here is like, if you want a shot at this, cool. But I do think that credentials should play a role, like experience, like giving an 18-year-old kid who has no idea what the heck he's doing a role because you like him essentially and he wants it doesn't mean he's the best person for the job and there isn't somebody more deserving over it. But it's your company, right? This isn't a bureaucratic corporate company. It sounds very dangerously close to it, though. I mean, seriously, dude. You don't have to do something for 5 years to get a promotion. I hate the word promotion. The more responsibility, risk you help us navigate, and overall BS you deal with, the more you make. And if you want more of that, we will gladly help you train to receive it. Haha. Why is there a haha there? Like, I don't, by you saying this, like, I don't believe that you actually will offer the training. There's infinite room for you to grow here. This isn't a stepping stone. This is your final destination. Even just like that analogy is funny. Very ironic. We will win, and we are going to build something amazing. I see a world where this company is worth billions and one day tens of billions, and those of you that help build this will be rewarded. Rewarded how? Why aren't they rewarded now? I want nothing more than for you to go to all in, obsessive all day, every day, and become so damn valuable. This company can't operate without you. And in return for becoming so valuable, I hope to give you incredible experiences, a fun place to work. Oh, now he mentions the fun place. Like there's nothing mentioned about, hey, like, we do like quarterly retreats or something because you could afford to do that, dude. Give them vacations or something. And of course, more money than you could ever dream of making at any other company. There's nothing about salary in this either, like salary expectations, like, hey, our highest performer makes this amount. Like there's nothing. This is what you could earn up to. This is where they start. Like there's no examples. There's nothing useful in this aside from some of the data that he shared about how to create a viral video. Now read this all over again because I guaranteed you didn't retain enough. I mean, I think I did, and I think it really offered nothing, Jim. But hey, you guys can read through the whole thing if you want to, if you feel like you didn't retain enough. I'll link the document in the description below. But there you have it, folks. How to succeed in a Mr. Beast production without really trying. Um, I mean, my brain hurts, my eyeballs hurt. Like, the amount of irony and hypocrisy in that is just absolutely appalling, and I'd be so curious how many iterations, because again, I've heard that this is a updated version, or the most recently updated version, which is ironic considering he mentions Chris Tyson in there, and we know since then, since the allegations have come out, that Chris Tyson now no longer works at Mr. Beast. So I am curious. Also, like, I'm curious who the boys are. Like, that's so weird and gross, and how they can be childish. And there's so many red flags in here. So many red flags. That being said, if there's any Mr. Beast former employees who come across this video and you want to chat, either on the record, off the record, I'm totally open to having a conversation. I would love to just get a better insider's look into what that experience was like, as somebody who's also worked in several toxic work environments, specifically in the content creation and marketing space. So there's definitely a lot I can relate to in reading that. And I'd love to hear your story and just continue to expose this douche canoe, because that's what he is. Let's call it what it is. He's allowed to go and say and call these people all these things and bully them and harass them and just be a mean spirited individual, and throw on this fake facade like he's, Mr. almost like Mr. Christmas, right? And I really feel like we need to continue to put the pressure on him. And he reminds me so much of like how we've heard Lo run her sets, her film sets, her music video shoots, like how she runs her shows. We've heard the same thing about Dan Schneider and how he can, I mean, and the creepy stuff too. Like, this is my question, is Mr. Beast YouTube's Dan Schneider?